So hello and welcome everybody to this Power Hour on June 14th, 2022. We are joined today by Lee Crockett, who is going to be helping us answer the power question, how do I get the promotion that I want and deserve? And just a reminder, for those of you who are attending live, you can engage at your level of comfort. This is something that you can certainly engage with passively or actively. And we are recording for our folks at home. So if you're watching this at another time, you will get the information, you'll get Lee's information to follow up with questions following this and some other opportunities as well. So I am Marissa Badgley, and I am the facilitator of the Millennial Manager Collective and also the founder of Reloveution. And we're really excited to have these monthly spaces to answer the questions that you all are asking. So without further ado, I am going to pass it over to Lee, who is going to teach us everything we need to know about up-leveling ourselves and getting that promotion we all want. So Lee, here you go.
Perfect. Thank you, Marissa. So nice to be here with all of you. I am going to go ahead and share my screen. And if the button will work, bear with me. Technical difficulties. Here we go. Can you see my screen? Okay, perfect. Awesome. So like I said, my name is Lee Crockett. I'm a leadership development and career strategist. And I'm really excited to be here with you. So thank you so much to Marissa for the opportunity. I'm here to talk to you about how to fast track your promotion. But before we dive into the meat and potatoes of what we're going to talk about, I'd really love to just give you more background about me, who I am, what I do, and how I ended up coaching and helping people fast track their promotions. So my professional background is in sales and people leadership. I have experience in business development, account management, operations, and training and development. So I've worked in consumer packaged goods in the food and beverage space, as well as manufacturing. I got my BS from Boston University, and I concentrated in entrepreneurship and small business management. And I received my MBA from Babson College. So all of the roles that I've had have been in extremely male-dominated industries, but I've been able to work hard and persevere and figure out a formula to success, which I'm going to share with you today. So when I reflect back on the different roles that I've had, there are really some pivotal moments that stand out to me and shaped who I am as a person and who I am as a coach. So I graduated in 2009, which was a year early, and I started working right away as a frontline sales leader. So I was 21 and I was leading a team of men who could have all easily been my father or my grandfather. And I know that you can see the bullets on the screen, but I really want to emphasize that at different places in my career, I've not only been some of the things that you see listed, I've been all of the above, sometimes at the same time. I've been the youngest, the only woman of color, the only woman leader, and the only woman of color in leadership, all at the same time. So as I'm sure you can understand or relate, everywhere I went, there was a boys' club, or everywhere I went, there was a secret formula to success that I felt like I didn't have access to. I felt like I was alone and that I didn't have the resources or the advocates that I needed. And because of this, I really struggled early on in my career to figure things out. Like, how do I get promoted? How do I get taken seriously? How do I get more responsibility? So And also because I was in sales, I had sort of double the challenge. I had comments and passive aggressive, things to deal with internally from coworkers and colleagues, but also externally from customers. So I had a really, really difficult time early on in my career and formed a thick skin, which was really actually a blessing in disguise. So eventually, I was able to find my way and I started moving up the ranks. But what I noticed was that there was no formal training available as reinforcement. So, taking the knowledge that I had learned along the way, I created training and coaching opportunities for as many employees as I could find. And this included my direct employees, but also the entire front line. Really, anybody that I could get a hold of. I'd try these things out and see how it worked in their career. So I also helped coach and train my coworkers through mentorship as well. I put a huge focus on professional development. And after some time, I noticed that the people that I had been coaching were also starting to get promoted. So a couple of years after grad school, I decided that I wanted to launch my own business and really become a coach. When I thought about how I would niche down, I really spent time thinking about not only what I could offer as a coach, but really what I was passionate in speaking about and teaching about. And I realized that I wanted to help as many people I could to fast track their careers because I didn't have the resources that I needed. And I felt that so many other people felt alone and isolated the way that I felt, that this was really the area that I wanted to focus on. So for those reasons, I help high achieving professionals fast track their promotions so that they can overcome imposter syndrome and really take control of their careers. I believe in helping more people get a seat at the table, and I help them do that by teaching them how to play the corporate game. And some people call it politics, but I like to think of it more like a game of chess. We know that the system is broken, and it's really time to acknowledge it and really help others move forward in their career. So as we dive into this, I want to ask you to take a look back on your own career history and tell me, has this ever been you? So have you ever been passed over for a promotion by someone less qualified? Or maybe someone with less tenure? Do you feel like you're constantly putting out fires? Do you feel like you're overworked and underpaid? Are you working later and later to get everything done, but you still feel like you can't get to the bottom of your to-do list? Are you heading for burnout? Or maybe you've already been there. And then the last question, does it seem like everyone around you has this secret manual to success that I talked about, and you somehow just didn't get a copy? If you answered yes to any or all of those questions, then trust me, you are not alone. I was you. And I thought that all I had to do was keep my head down and work hard, and I would be recognized and promoted. And neither one of those things happened. It took me years to really understand the unwritten rules of getting promoted and playing the corporate game. So now that I know and understand the rules, it's my mission to teach as many people as possible. So the picture you see on the screen was taken before I knew what to do. This particular day, I was hosting an executive leadership tour through my territory at work. And everything went perfectly that day. I crushed this. At the end of the day, when we dropped off the team, our senior vice president invited me onto the plane to take a look around. The pilot, whose name was Doug, I'll never forget, turned around and introduced himself, and our SVP started yelling like, "Doug, let Lee take a picture in the chair. Take a picture for her." So he did. The pilot of our corporate jet took this picture for me in the cockpit on my cell phone. And before I left, the SVP really thanked me for doing an amazing job. He said that the tour went well, that my territory was flawless, my knowledge was impressive, and I was really a shining star to watch out for. So I went home on a high thinking that I was badass. I was totally getting promoted, right? And guess what happened? The answer is nothing. I did not get promoted. I did not get a raise. I didn't get anything. And that's why knowing the rules and playing the game is so important. If you know the rules, you can really learn how to advocate for yourself. And this really includes opening doors for yourself, not just waiting for someone or an organization to open them for you. You'll know what companies are looking for when they promote an employee. And this is important so that you can identify when you're ready, not just in your eyes, but in the eyes of an organization. And I didn't say your particular organization, but we'll get to that later too. You'll also be able to leverage your skills, even when no one's there to guide you. And most importantly, you'll be able to methodically navigate your career. That's what puts you back in the driver's seat and you get control. So with that being said, let's just take a second to reflect. I'm going to move on to the next slide and really talk about the goals for today. But as I do that, let me know. Tell me in the chat, or really just think about it to yourself. What do you feel is holding you back from being promoted or getting where you want to go in your career? Is it something or someone? Maybe it's even a combination of both. So I'd love to get a sense from you now before we go through the steps. And then I'm also going to ask you again later to see if your thoughts have changed. So let me know in the chat, what do you think is holding you back from being promoted or from taking that next step in your career? That's a huge one. Fear, imposter syndrome. Yep. Learning how to make your accomplishments and contributions more visible. An unstable organizational structure. Okay. Switcheroo. Got it. Absolutely. Perfect. Okay, so let's keep a hold of that. And then we'll touch base again at the end to see if you still feel like the same things or what's really holding you back. So by the end of our time today, you're going to learn about the mindset shift necessary to play the corporate game. You'll learn what the path to promotion pyramid is. And then you'll learn how to use that pyramid to develop a career plan that fast tracks you to your next great role. So let's talk about goal number one, which is the mindset shift that's required for you to be able to play the game. You have to have a 30,000-foot view of your career. And you cannot do this if you're stuck in the weeds or the day-to-day anxieties that come along with your job. I call this being stuck in the whirlwind. Right? You can't catch your breath before there's something else pulling you in another direction. It's really important that you separate yourself from putting out fire mode and you really step into a macro level view of what's going on. The second piece is you need to shift away from being too busy to think about your career to knowing that you need a strategy. Beginning with an end in mind really helps you stay on target and execute against your plan. And finally, you have to know that waiting for approval, appreciation, recognition, whatever you're waiting for, is not going to help you win. You have to know the value that you bring to the table and be your own advocate in your career. So I'll give you another story. The first story I told you was about a time before I knew how to play the game. This one is after I learned the rules. I was being considered for promotion, and I was told that I hadn't checked all of the boxes in order to qualify. The company told me that I needed to manage a different type of team to really show my versatility. And this required me to move out of state again. As a sidebar, I had already moved twice for this company, and both times were lateral positions with no pay raise. But this time, my boss and HR both told me that this move was really just a technicality. They needed me to go in and deliver results, and I'd be able to move up and get promoted. And that's exactly what I did. I took the business unit from red to black. I improved employee service standards. I did every single thing I was told needed to be done. And when I approached them again about the promotion, I was told that I needed to be in role for 18 months minimum. I'm sure you've heard this before I could be considered, even though there were open roles and open promotions available at the time. So really think about this. If I hadn't have known how to play the game, where would I be? I was out of state and away from my family, all because of a promise that they were now backing out on. And luckily, I had been playing the game the whole time. I had an external offer on the table, and I moved to another company that gave me more leadership responsibilities and 25% more pay. So let's talk about goal number 2. We're going to dive into the path to promotion pyramid and how to use it to build a career plan. As we go through, compare where you are in your career against the principles I'm going to cover with you. Let's do it. This is my path to promotion framework. It's a system that I developed and used in my own professional life. Using this system, I was able to get promoted several times and triple my salary. It's a 4-step system that builds on itself. You start at the bottom with build your foundation. Once you have that going and you're standing on solid ground, you move up to drive performance. Then you can focus on building your bench. And finally, you make your move. So let's dig in and talk about each step one by one. Building your foundation is all about being on the offense versus the defense. It's about understanding the essentials. First and foremost, you need a baseline strategy. You have to understand where you are and where you need to go. So some of the questions to ask here are, how am I being perceived in the office? It's not something we think about often. But if you think you're a ray of sunshine and everyone else thinks you're the employee from hell, you're not getting promoted. It doesn't matter how good your work is. Understanding how you're perceived will inform how you need to package yourself to others. Other questions to dig in and ask here are, what are the things you need to really be working on? And what are the things you don't need to work on? How should you really be spending your time? It's really important to align yourself and your activities with your business objectives. Otherwise, you're shooting for the wrong target. Building your foundation also involves developing your network. Making the right kinds of friends at work is much more important than just having or making friends at work. You need to cultivate a network of advocates and allies. And these are people who can put you on the fast track list, which is the third point. Whether you've experienced it directly or not, you need to know that there is a fast track list at work and you're not on it. The fast track list is what employers use to select candidates for promotion. It's how they choose who to tap on the shoulder. So do you remember last month when Chad got promoted into a role that you didn't even know was available, even though he's clueless and he had a horrible performance review? It's because he's on the fast track list and you have to get on it too. The next step up the pyramid is where you drive performance. The goal here is to get you and your team's performance on autopilot. Here is where you want to dig into efficiencies, you want processes in place, the whole 9 yards. In order to do that, you need to make development decisions. So looking at your team, who stays and who goes? Who needs more development and attention from you to enhance their performance? Who can be developed into a stretch role? Knowing where you stand with your team right now tells you where you need to spend your time. And up-leveling your team is an investment that will have you reaping rewards for months to come. By cutting through the noise and really continuing to focus on activities that directly align with your business objectives, things become simpler, clearer, and allow you to take your performance up a notch. And this applies whether you're a direct people leader or not. Building your bench is the next step up the pyramid, and this step allows you to set the stage for the final phase of the process. Here, you're going to optimize your bandwidth. Get rid of or delegate the tasks that don't serve you or your objectives. This allows you to take on what I call the right kind of work. Taking on work just for work's sake really gets you nowhere. It can actually paint you in a negative light. Very often we really think that by staying late to get the job done, we're showing our boss that we're hardworking and we're worthy of promotion. But what it can actually do is paint a picture of an employee who can't handle their workload. We think that taking on more of your boss's responsibilities shows them that you're capable of higher level thinking and you're ready to be promoted. But what that can actually do is keep you stuck because your boss likes you doing their job for them. The kind of work that you're looking for here specifically is stretch assignments that allow you to show growth, strength, and leadership. These are assignments that showcase your skills. And then finally, in build your bench, you take out an insurance policy. And what I mean by this is that companies do not want to train you. This also extends to them not wanting to train your replacement. Functional leaders in HR are strapped for time, and we know that time is money. So by having someone ready to step into your job, at the same time showing the organization that you can easily step into your next role without training, really eliminates excuses on their end of why you can't move forward. So I'll give you one last story. I promise this is the last one. I have a friend who's been passed over for promotion several times. And I mean, not once or twice, probably 3, 4, 5 times. She's a really solid performer, but her boss is lazy. He has time to train, but he has no interest. And unfortunately, what that means for my friend is that he's never going to be excited about promoting her because he can't afford to see a dip in performance while the newbie gets up to speed. And he loves sitting at home on the couch in front of the TV too much to train someone new himself. So what she needs to do to move to the next level is build her bench and take out that insurance policy. The final step in my path to promotion system is make your move. This is where you take everything you've learned into high gear. So the stretch assignments and the networking you've been doing is going to get you the visibility you deserve internally. Additionally, the work you've been doing is showcasing your skill set and is going to look great on your resume. This is the time for you to work on Plan B. This is where you check all of the boxes, cross your T's, dot your I's, and wrap everything nicely with a bow. You're making sure that there are no steps that have been skipped. So once you get to this stage of the pyramid and you're ready to make your move, you decide what happens next. So really, you have 3 options. You get paid, or you get paid. So the first get paid means you get a raise while you wait for a promotion to become available internally, or you're shortlisted, whatever that may look like. The second get paid option means you move up the ladder in your organization and you get a formal promotion. Or the third get paid means you move out because you've gotten an amazing external offer. So no matter what happens in this last step, you decide what to do. This system is really designed to put you in the driver's seat of your career. You make the final decision, and you're no longer waiting for your organization to decide what happens. So let's take a breather before we move into wrap up. That was a lot of information in a little bit of time. So now that you know the steps, I want to touch base with you again. Which stage of the pyramid do you feel is holding you back from getting promoted? And understanding where the gaps are is really paramount for you to make a plan for your career. So let me know in the chat, what do you think? I'll go back to the pyramid here. Which stage are you at, or what's holding you back from getting to the next level? Is it build your foundation, drive performance, build your bench, or make your move? What comes next for you? Great question. Yeah, we'll definitely dive into that. So Kai is at drive performance. What about the rest of you? Any thoughts? Okay, great. You were at make your move, and things can change. Absolutely. You can move from one stage to another. Okay. Shifting from building your foundation to driving performance. Excellent. So we've covered a lot. We have talked about my cardinal rule, which is navigating corporate America requires you to understand that there is a game being played. You have to know the rules to get where you want to go. And the first step is adopting the right mindset. You have to step back, begin with an end in mind, and really craft your strategy. Second, the path to promotion pyramid is a systematic way, for you to plan the steps that you need so that you can get promoted. And using this system allowed me to move up the ladder and triple my salary. And third, once you understand where you are in the pyramid, you can really create a career plan to help you make your move. So my hope is that this workshop sparks some action and we can find ways to come together to get you back on the path to promotion. Before we move into Q&A, and I can't wait to hear some of your questions, feel free to go ahead and put them in the chat. I wanted to give you some more information about the work that I do and extend a special offer to you. So as I mentioned, I help high achieving professionals fast track their promotions so they can overcome imposter syndrome and take control of their careers. I work with people who feel passed over, undervalued, underutilized, and underpaid. My clients have really been ignored and gaslighted for so long that they've started questioning themselves and their talents. They really wonder if they need more experience. Maybe they need another degree, or maybe they're in the wrong industry altogether because things just haven't been going their way. These people are working late, they're overwhelmed, and they've lost the fire and the passion that they once had, not only professionally, but personally. They feel lost and feel like maybe this is just the best that they can do. So if any of this sounds like you, and you want to move forward in your career, I'd love to offer you a complimentary breakthrough session to learn more about what it would be like to work with me in one of my programs. The link is right here on the screen, but I'll copy it and put it in the chat as well so that you have it handy. I would love to spend time and talk to you about how to get you back on the path to promotion and get you the confidence and the pay that you've deserved. So I've set aside a limited amount of slots. So feel free to go ahead and schedule with me. And here is my email address as well, if you have any questions that pop up between now and then, but I would love to dive into Q&A. So I'm going to stop my share. And I welcome your questions.
Thank you so much, Lee. I know that we have one question from somebody in the chat. Do you have any tips for how to get that autopilot to work within a highly matrixed organization? Lots of layers and hierarchy and bureaucracy, I'm assuming.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. And a lot of organizations are like that. What I really work with clients on is controlling what you can control, right? And a lot of that is your direct sphere of influence. And again, whether you're a people leader or not, you have a department that you work within. So it's really about understanding not only where your place is and sort of what your rank is, what your strengths and talents are, but what the strengths and talents are of those around you. That's helpful when you need to delegate. It's helpful when there are stretch project opportunities to make sure that people are leveraged the right way. And it's a great opportunity for you to build your leadership skills, especially when you aren't a people leader. When you can influence without authority, it speaks volumes about people who are drawn to you, people who want to work with you for whatever reason. And that's what gets other people, especially in a highly bureaucratic organization and where there are multiple levels, it gets people to notice you. Because the more people in spheres of influence that your name comes up in, the more likely you are to get an opportunity because people are hearing about you and your personality and the work that you're doing. I'm just going to drop the link if anybody wants to schedule a complimentary session with me. Any other questions? Feel free to, you can either come off of mute or drop them in the chat, whatever you're comfortable with.
I have a question.
Sure.
One of the things you asked about the foundational part was to understand how you're being perceived.
Mhm.
And I feel like this is something I think about all the time because I can be really self-critical and I need to like reality check sometimes. And I can do that easily with folks that I'm like close to. But I think that's kind of skewed as well. And so how do you get do you have any tips or best practices for better understanding how you're perceived?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. And it's something for a lot of us. And I know in my career, until I got into the practice of really doing this over and over, it's something that kind of goes either in one ear or out the other, or it kind of just passes us and we don't really pick it up, right? So we get feedback constantly, right? Either we do a presentation and somebody says, oh, you did a great job, or I love how you blah, 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 right? Fill in the blank. Or you get feedback from your leader, particularly at least yearly in a formal review, right? What happens a lot of times is we take these messages or the feedback that we get and we interpret them emotionally, right? Some things hurt our feelings, some things make us excited, some things make us more self-critical. And it's really important to try to separate the emotion of that. And I'll give you an example, right? So somebody may say, oh, well, Vanessa isn't the best person to work with, or Vanessa can be argumentative, right? And a lot of times where we hear feedback like that, it triggers us emotionally. And what do? We rationalize it, right? We say, okay, well, I don't feel like I behaved that way in that situation, or that may be their opinion. So because we do that, we dismiss, sort of the nugget of what we're being given. A lot of times what I also see with clients is they're given the same feedback year after year from their boss or month after month. Hey, I want you to be more vocal. I'd love to see you present in a project and get in front of more people. And because we're uncomfortable with that, we dismiss it, or we say, hey, I tried, right? And these are the objective things that we're seeing that are going to give us information on how we're being viewed. More importantly, it's not about a personality thing. Sometimes it is, right? I talked about if you're the employee from hell, if nobody wants to work with you, then that obviously contributes to your future in the organization, but more so from an opportunity standpoint. a lot of times we're given constructive feedback or constructive criticism in terms of what will make us a stronger overall employee, right? So the same example of, hey, our boss wants to see us be more vocal, take a leadership stance, present more in public, right? But because we may not be comfortable, that's something we don't pursue. And that can actually be the thing that's holding us back from getting promoted. So a lot of times these messages are sort of right in front of our faces. It's just either we have an emotional response to them and we dismiss them, or we don't really register them as being advice versus more so being somebody else's opinion. Does that help?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions?
Hi, Lee. Hopefully you can, I'm coming across okay, like still like a little bit cheek swollen. So I heard a lot about what you said around from, when you're establishing a foundation all the way to building your bench around making sure you're doing the right kind of work and aligns with the business's bottom line, essentially, right? So I'm struggling a little bit, not that I disagree with what you're saying. What I'm struggling with is I am very active in one of our ERGs. And like, I mean, my argument is that that should be part of our bottom line matters internally for retention, given that's such a huge problem for everyone right now. It also matters because ultimately we are a consumer facing brand at the end of the day. So it matters to the people that it's ultimately buying our products, right? I don't think organizationally we're quite there yet. So I'm a little bit conflicted because I do think I am doing the right kind of work, let's say for my own, let's say, ethical like foundation, but also it is supposed to align with our corporate, stance, our quote unquote compass of doing the right thing. But we don't, like, frankly, like I think most people who work on ERGs like don't get recognized for all this unpaid work, right? So I'm just like struggling a little bit, to be honest. Like I think this is really important work, but you don't get recognized for it. It's not the right kind of work for promotions, but you know what I'm saying? So like, I just would love to get your thoughts on it. If it like matters at all. Like I'm really active in our Asian descent ERG.
Yeah, this is a great question. And I was like very early on in my career, I had really a second full-time job. Right. I had my full-time job during the day. And because I was so interested in coaching people and professional and personal development, I was doing that on the side for fun. I was creating new ERGs. I was doing community service, right? All of those things. So what I will say is that when I talk about the right kind of work, I do not mean morally, ethically, or any of those things, right? As much as they should have weight and make a decision in how we're promoted, the culture of the organization really determines how much weight that bears. So in my instance, and it sounds like it's very similar for you, they thought it was great that I was doing all of these things, right? But they were basing promotions on business objectives. So what I will say is that it's important for you to have work in your organization that makes you feel like you're contributing to the greater good, makes you feel aligned, lines up with your passions. But if you're trading that for executing on a business objective, then you're not doing the right kind of work. Right. So for your organization in particular, it's very important that you understand that, build your foundation, that base level strategy, so that you know what is expected of you if you want to be promoted, how this work with your ERG contributes to or takes away from that plan. And then you can make a decision, again, putting yourself back in the driver's seat on how you're going to do both. Right. But it's really deferring to what the organization is saying is important, because that's how you're going to be graded, judged, viewed, promoted, right? These extracurriculars are great because they can say, oh, well, Kai, nailed it on X, Y, and Z, and she does all of these things. But they can also say, oh, well, Kai's spending a lot of time working on this ERG, but she's a 2 out of 5 or a 3 out of 5 on these business objectives. And that's still not a fit for what we're looking as in a next level leader.
Got it. Thank you. And if I may add on a follow-up question to that. So like, it sounds like you're not necessarily suggesting that folks who are a part of ERGs like try to make that further push about how the work that ERGs do affect the business bottom line. I mean, I understand like the business case for diversity is a very tricky subject matter in general for all the reasons that ought to be tricky matter. But I'm just also curious for your perspective on that, because we internally where I am right now, we have had a lot of back and forth because it's like, if we do want to ask for actual compensation for the ERG work, then we have to make the business case. So it becomes a very circular problem.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that you can do that is helpful is a lot of organizations, when you have your annual review, they're giving you some leeway into adding in, important goals or business objectives that are important to you. As long as they align with sort of the backbone of the organization, right? So many organizations have core values, and sometimes community service is one. And if you have the opportunity to add in your own comments or your own stretch targets, if you will, then that's a great place to have that conversation with leadership about how you can incorporate the work that you're already doing and have that really contribute to your overall rating score within the organization. But I do agree, it's definitely, it's important work. The strategy here and the chess, right? Like I talked about, playing the game is a game of chess, is about how can you work with the organization to recognize that. Otherwise, yes, you are doing it to make yourself feel good. You're doing it to help other people, but you also want to be able to help, have that work that you're putting in help you as well down the line.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So Marissa, extracurriculars are more helpful for landing new jobs that may be a fit or more aligned. Absolutely. So this is the whole piece that we talked about in Make Your Move, right? A lot of people feel that when they are in a toxic organization, if the culture does not align, if they're doing all of this work and it's just not paying off, then it's a waste of their time. The whole point of Make Your Move is having a plan B. Right? You may get that next amazing dream job, and that may be an internal promotion. But every stretch assignment that you do, every ERG that you work on, anything that you're doing that's a win within your organization will count as a win. Even if your current organization does not say, they don't count it as a win, or they say it's not important. If you're continuing to add these wins to your resume as they're happening, another organization will view that and say, oh, wow, this is a great transferable skill set, or, oh, wow, this person goes above and beyond. And that's how you're able to build your strategy and make your move, right? This is really about not putting all of your eggs in one basket. And even if the last thing you want to do is leave your organization, it's still very helpful for you to update your resume, to have exploratory conversations, even to interview. Because if you have an external offer, then that's leverage that you can use with your existing company. And if you're in a toxic environment that you don't want to be in, you always have another move to make, versus feeling like, well, I just have to be grateful, or I just have to, wait for the next right thing, or I feel like I'm backed into a corner and I can't make a decision for myself. So use every opportunity, every win, every presentation to continuously update your resume and make that available to recruiters and outside people who may be interested in contacting you. What other questions do you have?
That's one question I have. Something I've struggled with or grappled with, maybe. I found that oftentimes when I feel like I'm in the make your move phase, something I've struggled with. I've been at the same company for almost 10 years. And we're a nonprofit, which has its own things of I think they like to think there's no game. Right. But there's still one. It's just different. Right. But because I've been here for so long, I found that it's like harder to find the type of like comparable roles that would either like allow me to feel like I have options or to like put pressure on my organization, basically, because I've ended up doing like relatively, on the scheme of things, like unique to my organization. And that's been like for a number of years at this point, they basically like slotted me in the double-edged sword of like, I've been given roles that are really specific to my skill set and context within the organization. That also means that they're really specific and unique to the organization. And so it's hard to sort of like, I found it hard to do that part of the make your move of like being prepared with like, to basically like always win, right? In some way, shape or form. And maybe that's just like an unwillingness to branch as far as maybe I would need to, but I'd just be curious on like, if that's something you've encountered or yeah, any recommendations basically.
Yeah, so what I would say is that it sounds like you're putting yourself in a box, right? So if you're saying, hey, I'm struggling to find comparable roles because they've been really tailored to my skill set, okay, then does that mean in another organization you would be at a VP level, right? Like what, like these aren't magic roles that were, right? There are other people who have similar skill sets. So what are they doing? What kind of roles are they filling? And it doesn't have to be 100% the exact responsibilities that you have, but really think outside of the box, right? So are you operating at a VP level? And a lot of times with, with nonprofits in particular, it's a whole other animal. So most of the time you are operating at, a C-suite level or a VP level, even if you may have an entry or a mid-level sort of rank within that organization. The box that you put yourself in is really confining your brain to that organization, right? So think from a corporate perspective. If you were to leave nonprofit tomorrow and be placed based off of your skill level, the amount of work that you've done, your years in the workforce, right? Like what level would that be? And they may completely disagree and say, oh, Matt came in and said that he needs to be paid at a VP. That's fine, right? But if you know that and you can market yourself that way, and there's another organization who's interested in bringing you in at that level, at that pay, then that's a perfect conversation to have with an organization to say, hey, I really want to stay here, but like, I have this external offer, like it's 3 levels up from where you have me, it's X amount of pay. Like, what are we going to do to right size this? And, you talked about winning every time. You may not win every time, right? Because again, you may not want to leave your organization, but in that kind of instance, you're going to do what's right for you. So that's, again, kind of the make your move phase, and really follow through the process. Don't take yourself out of the game just because you feel like, oh, I'm not sure what this comp would be. You need to make sure that you fact check before you actually have that conversation with the organization, but really think outside the box of what that would be.
See some affirmation that was helpfully. So thank you.
Good. Awesome.
Are there any other questions for Lee before we sign off on this power hour?
I had just, one more question. So I was thinking about your last kind of step on make your move. And it does sound like in my mind, or at least my interpretation of what you're saying, like a lot of, making sure you're already informally training your replacement, et cetera, can be really helpful, even if you do move outside of that organization or even outside of that team within the organization. I'm curious, for those of us who may be trying to make a move outside of our organization completely, what other suggestions would you have to make sure that we maintain those relationships, even if we hated working there? But given the world is really so small in many ways, what are some of your tips for those of us who will be moving on to ensure those ties are good, despite maybe less than ideal working conditions?
Yeah, so I think that this is a really common fear. And I'm not saying this flippantly, but we overthink this a lot of times, right? We feel like there's so much weight on our shoulders, and the organization is so strapped for labor and time and cash that if we were ever to leave, we would be creating this catastrophic situation where they would hate us forever and they would never recover. And the fact is that's just not the case, right? As much as we like to believe that, and we're great contributors and we work hard for what we do. But if anything happened to us, right, whether we are sick, whether we quit, whether we get promoted, they survive and they will survive. And the cog keeps turning in the wheel, right? So as long as you're not doing, some of the forbidden things like quitting with no notice, right, or any of those real faux pas, then there's nothing really preventing you, as much as we're holding ourselves back with the impression that we've ruined the relationship, right? Like you're not really burning the bridge. So I would definitely just make sure that as you develop these relationships internally, just make sure you're connected on LinkedIn, right? But don't think twice about doing what's right for you or moving on or moving forward and leaving them behind, because they will be fine, right? Like the bridge will not be burned. There won't be anybody who's like, oh my gosh, I can't speak with you because you left the organization. Again, as long as you're, giving proper notice and you're, following things up and you're not just abandoning your job those last 2 weeks or the month or whatever that notice period looks like, it's really not something that I would worry about. I've been in many instances where people left and it was very controversial, and I'm connected with them today, and, controversial for normal workplace drama. But they did things the right way. They made a decision that worked best for them, and everything's all good.
Great. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Lee, for taking time to chat with those of us who are here and to sort of live on in perpetuity for those of us who are not able to be live today. We are so grateful for you sharing your wisdom and experiences with us, and to do so vulnerably. That's something that's really important in our community. So thanks for sharing the good stuff and the bad stuff, warts and all. It's good to hear those stories and to be affirmed when I know I've shared a lot of those experiences. So thank you. Want to thank everyone who was able to tune in live today. If you want to be in touch with Lee, you will get a follow-up email with all this information, but I just posted her email address and her website in the chat. And I'll also make sure to send that special offer link to all of you as well, so that you can take advantage of additional work and one-on-one time with Lee if that feels like it's good for you. But thank you all so much for being here, and go get it. You're all ready now. For those of you who are aspiring to get promoted or thinking about getting promoted, hopefully this has given you some tools, and really looking forward to being on that journey with you. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks so much.